This might seem a million miles away from the hustle and bustle of central London, but believe it or not, thousands of high-end properties in our capital are owned by anonymous companies based here in the British Virgin Islands. Some are known as shell companies. These are firms that have the outward appearance of being run like a normal business, but in reality, their sole purpose is to manage money.
I think what a shell company gives you is secrecy. So you know if you're stealing public funds, you can move that into UK property through a shell company without any flags being raised. And of course, we're not saying that all the money coming through shell companies is corrupt, but the problem is we just don't know because of the levels of secrecy. The Panama Papers really exposed the UK's role in this scandal.
Even our very own National Crime Agency believes that the London property market has been skewed by laundered money and that prices have been artificially driven up by what they call overseas criminals who want to spend their money in Britain. So what can be done to stop offshore wealth being used to buy property in London? One expert who helps the very rich buy high-end properties believes the industry needs to take more responsibility.
We need to move away from being nervous about pointing out what might be going wrong, leave it to the authorities to make that ultimate decision for us. What we want to ensure is that the pirates and the criminals can't use London property for their own ends.
The London property market has been heating up for some time. According to figures out today, house prices in the capital are over 8% higher than this time last year. That's a rise of over £44,000 or £122 every day. More than double what someone on a living wage earns in an 8-hour day. But will these revelations create some hope for ordinary Londoners?
Now they know they can no longer keep this money secret, the attraction of London property reduces, particularly in the centre. So we should expect prices in the very centre of London to begin to fall, and we should expect that to have a knock-on effect to the rest of London.
Whether prices will fall enough to make them more affordable is still debatable. What the Panama Papers have done is certainly highlight the inequality in our housing market. Now there are calls for the Prime Minister to force our overseas territories to make more information public before the anti-corruption summit that he's hosting here in the capital next month. Ramzan Karmali, BBC London News. You might think of the working holiday as something from yesteryear, like this, or perhaps gap year trips to far-flung places. But working vacations here in the UK are growing in popularity. So why are more and more people willing to roll up their sleeves and pitch in rather than relaxing on a sandy beach? Melanie has been on around half a dozen working holidays. She's been able to take advantage of free sailing lessons and caving tours during some of these breaks, and for her, this side of the vacation is only one of the many benefits.
I'm a museum curator, so obviously I'm very much working inside and working with objects inside a museum, putting together exhibitions. So it's quite different to be able to get outdoors and just be outside and trying all these different conservation activities and working with sort of the wild plants, working with other like-minded individuals and meeting new people as well.
There are a number of organisations that offer a wide variety of getaways. Possibly one of the key attractions to a working holiday is the cost. A more leisurely break in a National Trust cottage will start at around £220, but a working holiday could set you back as little as £135 for the week. But if you're thinking of booking one of these, there are things to look out for.
A working holiday, a volunteer holiday, is still something that you need to pay for. So you've got the cost of the holiday itself, you've got insurance, you've got travel getting there, and also maybe some extras because they are quite basic on the whole. The accommodation is likely to be basic. So if you like your creature comforts, you'll probably have to take those with you as well.
There's quite a choice when it comes to these holidays, from farming to construction, and even possibly working on an archaeological dig. In fact, some of these holidays can cater for the whole family. These breaks can be both rewarding but also extremely challenging. Though for the organisations that you'll end up working for, much of it will be vital.
Some of the tasks can be quite challenging, very, very physical. The sorts of things that we do in the countryside, there's a lot of habitat management, so we're out in all weathers, carrying out tasks with tools, hand tools, cutting scrub, grassland management, all sorts of different things that then have a real important contribution to the conservation work.
If you're a townie like me, looking for new experiences, willing to get your hands dirty, and up for learning new skills, this could be the holiday for you. Ramzan Karmali, BBC News. Matthew Yassine bought this flat in West London as part of a shared ownership scheme back in 2007. He was delighted to be able to get on the housing ladder. He currently owns 65% of the property. Now, though, he wants to sell, but for the first 8 weeks he has to rely on the housing association, who own the rest of the apartment, to find potential buyers. And not having immediate access to the open market isn't his only frustration.
To sell a shared ownership property, you find out once you start the process that you've got extra costs which are through the housing association, because you've got to use their panel of surveyors, which we have to pay for. That valuation or that survey would last for a 3-month period. If the house or the flat hasn't sold by then you need to have it revalued.
But his housing association claims that in around 80% of cases they've been able to sell the property in this initial 8-week period.
I'm sorry Matthew's ended up in this position. We do try and explain that it is slightly different to the open market when we sell shared ownership. But the fact is that shared ownership has received public subsidy. So what we try and do is to recycle it at the point of resale so that new first-time buyers have a chance to buy into that affordable housing as well.
As well as restrictions when it comes to selling a shared ownership property, there are also hurdles to overcome in order to buy one. In the UK, you can qualify for a shared ownership scheme if you earn less than £60,000 a year. However, that figure is higher in London at £77,200 a year. Typically, you'll own between 25 and 75% of the property, but you'll end up paying rent on the share of the home that you don't own. So if this is the only way you think you'll be able to become a homeowner, then there are some basic guidelines you should follow.
The biggest and most important thing that you need to do is read the paperwork. You need to read the contract, you need to have a lawyer. Like any property transaction, you really need to get into the detail of what it is that is being expected of you as a leaseholder to the housing association, and also what the kind of clauses are in terms of being able to resell.
Matthew is keen to buy a bigger property next. He still believes in the merits of shared ownership, but he thinks it's vital to check all the details thoroughly before you commit. Ramzan, Karmali, BBC News.